have saved seed before. Okay. And what types of things did you seed save?
Squash, beans.
Okay.
Beans,
Okay.
melons, tomatoes.
Cool. So that's those are some of the things that are easiest to save seed from. And some of those are good ones to start with if you want to maintain varietal purity. So the first thing that, well, first of all, just say that the easiest things to seed save, I'd say if you're a beginning seed saver, you've never done it before, I would start with tomatoes. My writing's really messy, sorry. Beans, lettuce, those are probably your easiest ones. Beans and peas. Your sort of next tier, I would add other nightshades, so say peppers, eggplant, anything in that family, other than potatoes, they're kind of special. Those are pretty much your kind of the ones you want to start with. And the reason is that, like I said, with the library, we're really interested in making sure that what gets checked back in is the same thing that got checked out. So certain varieties or certain plant types are a little bit more, let's say, promiscuous than others. So the first thing, there's basically two different categories of plants when you talk about seed saving. Those are inbreeders and outbreeders. And by the way, this is the really quick version of all of this. You can find a lot more information in books. I brought a couple here you guys can look at. We're going to try and get some copies for the library too. But so inbreeders, basically that means that they are pollinating themselves. So each flower contains both pollen and the ovary that's going to become the fruit. And they're even closed in, so they don't want pollinators in there. They're a sort of self-reliant flower, you could say. They're often called perfect flowers. Though, actually, you could be a perfect flower and not do this. But so those are things like beans and peas. You'll notice the shape of the flower, it's closed. Tomatoes, it's the same thing, it's closed. Because it's just trying to sort of recirculate, which means that it's really easy to maintain varietal purity because it's not crossing with anything else. So you can have one tomato plant that's planted next to a tomato plant of another variety, and they're probably not going to cross. You don't really need to do anything to make sure that doesn't happen. Lettuce, they also have perfect flowers. They're not closed flowers, but they are also self-pollinating. So as long as you don't plant if you only plant one type of lettuce, you can still save seed from that lettuce and it'll still be what you thought. Peppers and eggplant, it's sort of the same as tomatoes, they just have a little bit more likelihood of outcrossing, so that's why I say, be a little more careful, but it's pretty guaranteeable. So some other plants are outbreeders or outcrossers, and that means that they are actually they either need to cross-pollinate with another plant, or it's just really likely to happen because of their flower structure or what have you. So pretty much anything that's not on that list, so brassicas, so things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, those are really tricky to seed save, mainly because most winter vegetables are in that, are actually the same species. Cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, a few other Brussels sprouts, they're actually all the same species. So a Brussels sprout and a broccoli, they don't know that they're different. They think they're the same. So if you have all of those different things planted, they're going to cross with each other. So then when you collect that seed, you don't even know it's going to be broccoli, let alone the same variety of broccoli. And then squashes and cucumbers and melons, they're really tricky because, can anyone guess why? They cross with each other. They actually have separate male and female flowers. So they have to cross with each other. They have no choice. So if you really want to maintain varietal purity with a squash, a melon, or a cucumber, you should actually be hand-pollinating your plants, which is not as scary as it sounds. On YouTube, we have I'll give a video that I actually did at a former SLOLA meeting about how to do that. It's not difficult, but it is sort of an extra kind of thing you have to pay attention to. So okay, that's the rundown really quick. So how do you do this? How do you make sure that you're maintaining varietal purity? there's a few different ways. So, and that's what we call isolation. So just making sure that your plant kind of stays its own thing. So you can physically isolate, which for a home gardener isn't that difficult to do. So if you are really gung-ho about it, you could put netting over your plant so that bees don't get in there. You could put cages over it. I don't think that many people do that, though. I think it's, realistically, it's just kind of an extra step that you're probably not going to take. So some more realistic things are time. So let's say you have one variety of plant, but you really also want to plant another one. If you just space it out, if you know, okay, this is 50 days till harvest, so that's harvest, it's a little bit different from flowering, but they're not going to flower at the same time. So even though you have two different plants next to each other, their pollen isn't going to mix because you have one that's flowering and the other one hasn't flowered yet. Does that make sense to everyone? So that's a really easy way to still be able to have multiple varieties of things or multiple vegetables that are actually crossable with each other and still not have to worry about it. Then there's also distance, which I don't think is really applicable to urban gardeners. You probably don't have a couple of acres in your backyard. But you'll see that in a lot of seed-saving literature. They'll list isolation distances, and that's just what that is in case you're wondering, but I don't think you need to bother with that. The only thing you need to know about that, though, is that if you have neighbors that are really into gardening, they might be planting something that could cross with your plant. As an organization, SLOLA, we don't have a good answer to what to do in that situation. You can't control what your neighbors do, so we're just sort of leaving that up to chance. The trouble with urban seed saving, it's never really been studied. You can't really study it, really, because if you're on a farm that does seed production, you can tell what your isolation distance is, you can study it, you know everything that's around you. That's never really going to be the case, so we know that we're not selling our seed commercially, and it's probably not going to be 99% pure like the stuff you get when you purchase seeds. So, okay, any questions about isolation or varieties, crossing? Yeah.
So community garden might be difficult.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Okay.
So if I were in a community garden, I would stick to the inbreeders that are really easy. But I think, or if you're really into it, I would definitely start with the inbreeders anyway if I was a beginner, because it might just get frustrating otherwise. I mean, it's certainly, just because it might be difficult in terms of purity, but not difficult in terms of collection. Brassicas are really easy to collect seed from. It's just that you don't know what that seed is unless you've taken some serious precautions. So.
Okay.
But if you did want to do some netting or something like that, you could definitely do those. Yeah. So then the actual step of how to actually save the seed. First is just be a good gardener, so do everything you would do normally. Make sure your plants are healthy, keep them well nourished, add compost, do whatever it is you normally do, try and keep diseases and pests away. But then also you need to be thinking about maturity. And a lot of vegetables that we grow, we don't harvest. Harvesting for consumption is not the same as harvesting for seeds. So let's say zucchini, for instance. We harvest zucchini when it's an immature fruit. So what we need for seed saving is a mature fruit. And that's what we need across the board, mature fruit. I'll write that on my board because it's so important. So you want to make sure that you've given the plant the opportunity to make sure its fruit are fully mature. So beans, for instance, are super easy to save seed from because all you're doing is just waiting and waiting and waiting until the pod gets all the way full and all the way even dry. You can leave it on the plant until it's dry. So there's really not too much margin for error there. Tomatoes are also easy because you can pick it at the same stage you would eat it, maybe a little on the riper side. So that's really easy. Winter squash also are mature by the time you pick them. So I guess it's hard to kind of generalize, but if you look up in any book, it'll tell you kind of what characteristics you're looking for with a mature fruit. But you can also think about it, think about what the fruit looks like when you cut into it, when you eat it. Does it seem like those seeds are what they looked like when you got them out of the seed packet? does it seem